This is about ethics in the workplace, and I think with our audience here, the financial secretaries, business managers, I know you folks have a lot of dealing with the public. You're the a lot of times the first person that somebody comes in, a parent, a company or whatever, a company rep into your school, you're the first point of contact. It's interesting for me talking about ethics because before I started my 24 years here, I worked in private industry and procurement, completely different when you're dealing with vendors and things like that when you work in private industry. So it's a lot more structured in our environment, as I'm sure you all know. Can you get the next one here? The next slide is basically to capture ethics. I mean, the first sentence that we put together, the discipline dealing with what is good and what is bad with moral duty and obligation is how we should be dealing with the public when we have to do that. And moral principles and moral correctness are the two key things here, in my opinion. Next one. I have to move along because we're behind schedule. I apologize. What is the appearance of ethics? This is a great slide here. Ethics really relies heavily on your personal values, the way you were brought up, your beliefs, and how you conduct yourself personally and in the business world, your coworkers. It's also interesting in an environment like we have, an organization that we have, it's so big, it's very diverse to have a lot of different cultures and things like that. And most folks have similar thoughts as you do, but not exactly the same. So it's a little bit different there because we're such a large organization, so many people dealing with so many organizations, companies, things like that. Next one. Okay. This is a great slide here. Basically, it talks about the different viewpoints of ethics principles. And again, a lot of people have a lot of different views on ethics, the way they deal with people, the way they deal with situations. But anytime that you're dealing with the public, with a company, with one of your photography contracts or whatever you guys are involved with, if something seems like it's not right, it probably isn't. And a lot of companies will call us, me, the purchasing office. They have a friend that has a company and they want to know if they could buy from them. Well, I wouldn't recommend it, but if it's just a small purchase, not a big deal, I guess there's nothing wrong with that. It's a local company, we're a local agency. I also know that if we have contracts with, schools have contracts with certain companies, they like to offer us gifts and things like that. I wouldn't accept that, even if it's just a token gift. Next one, yeah. The next slide talks about NIGP, which in our world, in the central office, is the National Institute of Governmental Purchasing. It's an excellent group that we're involved with, and it really lays out the standards that we deal with, the policies, the procedures that we follow. It's also where we get our certifications through. One thing that the NIGP policy that we get involved with when it gets down to a local level, if you're ever dealing with companies with procuring something for your school, T-shirts or whatever, you have to remember that all the vendors have to be dealt with equally. And that's a little hard to do sometimes because I know you have firms that you deal with from time to time, and then say you have a purchase that's going to be of a little more substance, so you actually go out and got quotes. You have to get quotes from everybody for the same thing. You can't have a vendor come back and say, well, I can give you a better price. I mean, with the pricing wise, it's one and done. They get one shot and that's it, in my opinion. Next one, dude. This is a great slide here that Debbie put together also. When making decisions about purchasing something for your school, the office that you're at, basically is what you're doing, and I realize most of them aren't that much money, but is it legal? Is it in the best interest of your school, your organization, the office that you're working in? Have I considered company values over my personal values? And is there any way that what you're doing, the company you're dealing with, can influence the decision that you, the principal of the school, your supervisor in your office would make? How will it be perceived by the folks that you work with, the other people in the school, your office? What will their opinion be? And again, the line comes up, if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Next one, Gil. Next one. I'm not smart enough to work the PowerPoint and try to talk to you. I have to have somebody to help me. Anne Arundel County educated here, you know. This is interesting. The next slide, it talks about a school, not one of ours. Requires the service, and I've gotten a lot of calls for things like this. Requires the services of a photographer. I'll just read this back to you real quick. To take school pictures of students and create their yearbook. Really good photos. Has done the work for the last 20 years and has a good reputation with the school, rightfully so. 3 quotes are received to continue this service for another year or 2 years, whatever that time frame might be, and really good products, photos rather. Unfortunately for them, weren't the low bid. Another company comes back and says, well, we can match their price and we'll give you a better commission. Does anybody have any thoughts on something like that? If it was a structured process for your school, if you actually took the time to get 3 quotes? Right. If for some reason you did decide to give a vendor another opportunity, then you have to give all the vendors another opportunity. What you do for one, you have to do for all of them. So that's what I would suggest there if you're ever in a situation like that. And I do get phone calls for situations like that, not necessarily for this service, but for something like that. So, interesting. The next slide is the last slide, so I'm trying to survive this presentation here. To me, this was really interesting because it talks about doing something wrong as opposed to knowing that you're doing something right. And again, that reverts back to people having differing opinions of what's correct when you're working with a company for your school or for your office. I always take the situation that I look at things from the positive side, not look, you might be doing something wrong. I just think I'm doing the right thing from the get-go, and it usually works out okay. I'm trying to remember all of this. So again, I try to take things the positive spin, not look at the negative side. One thing that is, this is a kind of a cute story talking about ethics. A couple years ago, a furniture company, which I won't name who it is, around Easter, delivered, I think I was at South River working on some furniture project or something. I get back like 11:30 and there's this 4-foot chocolate rabbit. This is right around Easter, sitting there. So I thought, well, we can all have a purchasing treat here because it's so big. But somehow I got word from the powers that be upstairs that knew I had that down there, and that cost a lot of money. I was told that we can't have the rabbit. So, well, no, it's still intact. To which I responded, okay, what do I do with it? So I was told to take it to one of the schools and let the school know and make sure that the principal of the school doesn't have a problem, like the kids would get sick or something like that, or parents would get mad. So here I am driving down Aristide Allen Boulevard with this 4-foot chocolate rabbit in the front seat of my pickup with the seatbelt on. I hope nobody tells my wife I was having an affair. But the rabbit made it safely to the school and got eaten up in record time. So. One other note, since Debbie retired, I'm sure some of you know that, Debbie Grote retired, and we had worked together for years and years. In her absence, I was named the acting supervisor of purchasing. In my advanced age and my number of years in the retirement system, I opted not to try for that position. So we have hired another person for that, Mary Jo Childs, and I was on the interview committee. I look forward to working with her. She's a procurement advisor and an attorney for the Department of Public Works for the state of Maryland. I think she'll be great, so I look forward to her coming on board. And I'm sure you all enjoy working with her too. I guess that's it for my presentation.